Well, it was garbage day in the presidential campaign with garbage man Donald Trump actually climbing, I should say, stumbling into a garbage truck to stupidly draw attention to the free-flowing racism and bigotry at his Madison Square Garden rally on Sunday, which included a comedian no one has ever heard of referring to Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans as, quote, a floating island of garbage. Last night, President Biden said this.
And just the other day, a speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know the Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization is seen as unconscionable, and it's un-American. It's totally contrary to everything we've done, everything we've been.
The Trump campaign immediately and falsely interpreted that statement to mean that Joe Biden was calling all of Donald Trump's supporters garbage. The White House released their transcript of the Biden statement, which you just saw, which shows President Biden was referring to one person and what one person said. When the president said, "The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters," meaning the garbage of one of Trump's supporters that was spewed into that microphone at Madison Square Garden.
Can I say Lawrence O'Donnell slammed the news media for panicked and stupid campaign coverage of President Biden's garbage remarks, supposedly referring to Trump supporters, by accusing journalists of refusing to understand English grammar. He said, the poisonous American candidate for president who uses Hitler's language constantly and calls Democrats garbage, that was not news. But the very same news media that ignored all the times Trump has called American citizens and American voters scum and garbage actually tried to turn Joe Biden's use of the word garbage into a controversial news story. To do so, they had to refuse to listen to the actual sentence Joe Biden spoke. They had to refuse to look at the written words of that sentence. They had to refuse to understand English grammar. They had to refuse to understand what a singular possessive is. They had to refuse to understand what apostrophe means. I mean, on and on, right? And he said, not one of the reporters who got excited about this today asked Donald Trump to name the good things that Adolf Hitler did. The terrible campaign reporters and commentators covering this campaign are completely exploitable by Trump, and Trump knows it, which is why Trump, the stupidest candidate ever to run for president, climbed into a garbage truck today to try to draw more attention, which, of course, they covered. I mean, and he looked ridiculous and frankly like he was having a stroke. I mean,
well, the fact that and I don't know if it's because of his depth perception and he wasn't able to see that handle because the handle was black. It was sort of ironic. But he wasn't able to actually, it just twice. Yeah. His depth perception's off. He's dragging his right leg. And let's remember that 3 months ago, everyone was talking about how senile they think Joe Biden is and how he can't put a sentence together and why is he in public, and all of a sudden we're supposed to take his word. You know what I mean? Now all of a sudden he's the sharpest guy in the world and anything he says must be, taken as gospel.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. The hypocrisy is hilarious. Yeah. I just, we were talking about the wrestler. Everyone listening, please have a plan. Text somebody during a commercial break and be like, hey, have you just one person? Hey, have you voted? Oh, you haven't? What's your plan? Yeah. Don't wake up on November 6th and feel like you could have done something more, because we really have to vote in numbers that are too hard to manipulate, because this is going to be crazy on November 6th when we wake up, because everything's going to be thrown at the wall. So make sure you've done everything you can.
Yeah, no, absolutely agreed. It is so sphincter clenching, terrifying. It's hard to find the words to talk about it. You retweeted Marcus Johnson, who's a youngin', who said, always remember when you go to vote, the impact of a presidency doesn't just last for 4 years. In many cases, they can have impacts for at least 100 years. Don't force yourself to fight battles your parents and grandparents already won. And you just said wise words from our young voters. The kids are all right. I was talking about that I got the first picture of my mom's name, which is my name, inscribed on my dad's grave in Arlington yesterday. And not just the despicable thing he did at Arlington, but just how he's insulted all of the, to me, all the patriots that lie there. And how much, it's just hard to overestimate how much this election means, right?
I'm hoping people don't take this for granted. Like, it's not just him. This is like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and JD Vance running the country. This isn't, Trump. They're going to put him out to pasture. So make sure that they don't give him an opportunity to do that. This is a terrifying fascist lineup behind him, and their bench is deep, unfortunately. Yeah. So we got to stop him now. We're going to have to stop him again in 4 years, but let's do it on November 5th. Let's do it in numbers that are massive.
By the way, there's just one story after another of Republican fuckery, in this election already, right?
Yep.
In just lawsuits and ballot boxes lit on, drop boxes lit on fire and threatening Democratic voters. And this one, I love this. Musk's get out the vote, because you mentioned Elon Musk. Musk's get out the vote workers were driven around on the back of a U-Haul van with no seats. Right. And tricked into helping Trump. One of several Michigan door knockers who claimed they were tricked into helping Musk help Trump get out the vote efforts were driven door to door in the back of a U-Haul van, no seats, threatened that their lodging at the local motel wouldn't be paid for if they didn't meet canvassing quotas, and that they would have to pay for their own flights home. So this was a contractor that received money from Elon's PAC, whatever, to operate door knocking. However, workers were reportedly left unaware of exactly who they were working for. One of them said, "I knew nothing of the job or much of the job description other than going door to door asking voters who they were voting for. Then after I signed over an EDA is when I found out we were Republicans and with Trump." I mean, it's just, they have to resort to tricks because they're going to lose, Dana. Make no mistake.
Absolutely. Oh, I agree with you. And we already know every time they do something, it's projection. They're the ones having to pay people to go door to door. People for Kamala's team are doing it because they care about democracy. They're the ones bussing in people for the rallies. 75,000 people are showing up at the Ellipse to support the next president of the United States. Everything that comes out of their mouth is projection, and we know that.
Yeah. This was scary. Mike Johnson and Trump already work on an effort to steal the 2024 election, writes Ellie Mistal from The Nation. By the way, I had Allison Gill on, and we tried to Ellie Mistal each other.
This story scared the crap out of me. I'm not gonna lie.
I know. Yeah, Ellie is not happy clappy. But he said the secret almost certainly involves a plan to install Trump in the White House if he loses the election. But this plan could be even worse than you think. It's entirely possible the secret plan is nothing more than a penny ante plot to, set fire to ballot drop boxes, which could be foiled by the Hardy Boys or Merrick Garland should he ever wake up. Ms. Stahl said. See, that's what I...
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. He said, some have wondered if Johnson might install Trump as president by claiming a contingent election that allows the House of Representatives, not the Electoral College, to determine the president. Mistal thinks the plot goes deeper than that. When people talk about contingent election, they're referring to the 12th Amendment, he says, saying if no candidate wins the majority of Electoral College votes, the House decides. Gastrointestinal distress. The key here is that the process is not based on a vote of the full House. It's based on a vote of the House delegations, with each state getting an equal vote. Currently, Republicans control 26 of the 50 House delegations, meaning they could hand Trump the presidency in a contingent election scenario. Oh, dear God.
That's why you got to vote for your states.
That said, Mistal doesn't even think they'll go that far. His fear is the states where Trump loses, Electoral College voters will refuse to certify the results. He says so the whole number is supposed to be 538, but one potential reading of the amendment is that Trump doesn't have to win 270 Electoral College. He just has to win a majority of how many electors show up. Trump's goal, I believe, is to decrease the number of electors appointed until he wins. Oh my God! I mean, the only thing that calms me now is Mark Elias on TV saying,
listen.
Calm down, we're going to win this. Just get out and vote, because all
this
of this
whole
stuff, you're
story,
like, what? I know.
I mean, part of me was like, obviously it's important that people know this, but also I'm like, if the other side wasn't smart enough to think about it, he laid out an entire plan for them and put it in print, and I'm like, oh, for God's sake.
I know.
Yeah.
I know, but these are not people that think they're going to win fairly, right. Dana. That's the point.
No, absolutely not. And thank God. And there's other people on there, and I can't remember the handle. I know the guy's name is Derek, but he's talking about how we do have people set up. The administration is watching this. The administration's watching everything. The administration's hearing him say he's got a secret plan with Mike Johnson. So there are lawyers now set up in every state, because every state, even though some of them do have Republican governors or do have Republican AGs, they still have state laws that say you have to certify by a certain time. And if not, these people will go to jail.
Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. I hope you'll join me on my new audio podcast, Justice Matters.
I'll be using my 30 years as a federal prosecutor and Army JAG to unpack, break down, and explain the legal issues of the day, particularly where the legal intersects with the political. Please look for Justice Matters with Glenn Kirshner wherever you generally get your podcasts.